The dryer at the neighborhood laundromat always made a low rattling sound, like loose change caught somewhere deep inside. I was there most Tuesday nights anyway, but tonight I stood longer than usual, palms in my hoodie pocket, watching the metal drum turn. It smelled faintly of detergent and coffee from the shop next door. Tuesdays were quiet. No one around to see me fold the same 2 towels I always brought, just for the excuse of leaving my apartment. She was behind the counter again, kneeling to fix a coin slot. Mid-40s maybe, dark hair tucked behind her ears, sleeves pushed up. Not the owner, just someone who worked evenings, I'd learned. She held a small screwdriver delicately, like a pencil. I'd noticed her before, in the way you notice a tune you keep humming but never name. Still rattling? She asked without looking up. Her voice was low, calm. Yeah, thought it was just me, I said. She smiled a little at that, still focused on the slot. It's the belt. Or maybe somebody's button from 1998. I almost laughed but stopped halfway. You sound like you've done this before. Too many times. She glanced at me then, a short flick of the eyes. Machines older than both of us combined. I folded one towel over my arm, refolded again without meaning to. I'm 27, I said, as if it mattered. Lucky you. She pushed the coin slot back in with a soft click and wiped her hands on a rag. There was something in the way she looked at me then. Not interest exactly, just recognition, like she'd seen me waiting here before and finally decided to speak. I went back to my dryer, pretending to check the time on my phone. The screen was blank. The draft of a text to someone I hadn't sent stayed open at the bottom. How's your week going? I scrolled past it and locked the phone again. She walked over, rolling the rag in her hand. If it jams again, kick the side. Not hard. Just here. She tapped the metal with her knuckles. I crouched to see where she meant. Our shoulders almost brushed. She smelled faintly of citrus soap, the kind that leaves your skin dry in winter. Got it, I said. You always do your laundry this late? She asked. Yeah. Fewer people. Quieter. She nodded. Same reason I work nights. The dryer buzzed. I opened it, steam curling out. She stepped back, but didn't leave, just leaned on the counter, rag still twisted between her fingers. You drink coffee? She asked suddenly. Yeah, I said a beat too fast. I mean sometimes. There's a pot in the back. Old but drinkable. She shrugged. If you want. I looked at the towels in my hands, still warm. Sure, I said, though my voice came out softer than I meant. She gave a small, unreadable smile, then disappeared behind the swinging door. The laundromat was quiet again except for the rattle of another machine. I folded the towels one more time, slower this time, listening for her footsteps. My phone buzzed once in my pocket. When I pulled it out, it wasn't the text I'd been waiting for. It was a new one. Coffee's ready. Come back if you like. I stared at it for a long moment, thumb hovering above the screen, the warmth from the dryer fading out of my hands. The back room was warmer than the laundromat. A single yellow bulb hung over a dented table. The coffee pot sat on a hot plate, half full, smelling slightly burned. She poured it into 2 chipped mugs without asking how I took it. Sorry, she said, setting one in front of me. Milk's gone. Sugar too. It's fine, I said. My hands wrapped around the mug like I needed something to do. She sat across from me, elbows on the table, fingers folded. She didn't drink yet, just looked at the steam curling between us. It's quieter back here, she said. Yeah. We both sipped. It was too hot. I set mine down, then picked it up again. She broke the silence first. My ex used to come here sometimes. Before the divorce. He hated the machines. Her mouth tightened on the word divorce, but she didn't look away. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't. She smiled a little, like she'd expected that. You ever been married? I shook my head. No, good, she said quietly, then shook her head. Sorry, that's not fair. It's okay, I said. We both laughed softly at nothing. I noticed her hands then, small scars across the knuckles, probably from work. She turned the mug slowly, thumb tracing the rim. Sometimes, she said, I think about quitting nights. But then I'd have to see more people. She gave a dry laugh. Same. I said before I could stop myself. I mean, I like nights too. Fewer eyes. She looked at me, not quite a smile but softer than before. Fewer eyes. The radio on a shelf clicked and hissed. She reached over to turn it off. The silence after felt louder. I took another sip, burned my tongue, set the mug down. I grew up near here, I heard myself say. Used to come to this laundromat with my mom. She'd read while the clothes turned. Her eyes flicked up. That's funny. I worked at a bookstore back then. Thought I'd do that forever. Why didn't you? She shrugged. Money. Life. People stop buying books. You have to wash things instead. We sat there a while. She leaned back, looked at the ceiling. I caught myself imagining things, her locking the door, or telling me some secret. My stomach tightened. I pushed the mug away slightly. I should probably finish folding, I said, but didn't stand up. She reached over, almost absent-mindedly, and straightened the napkin I'd been shredding under my fingers. You're in no rush. Machine's still spinning. Our hands nearly touched. She withdrew hers slowly, not like she was embarrassed, but like she was measuring the space between us. You're what, mid-20s? She asked. 27. She nodded. My son's 23. She said it flatly, but something in her voice made me sit back. I didn't know you had kids. He's in Chicago. We don't talk much. She traced the edge of the napkin again. He'd hate me talking like this. I'm not. I started, then stopped. I know, she said softly. The clock on the wall ticked. Somewhere out front, a dryer buzzed. She stood, poured more coffee into my mug, though I hadn't finished. You're quiet, she said. I don't know what to say, I admitted. That's okay. She sat again. You don't have to. We drank in silence. I noticed her eyes were tired, but not dull. She looked like someone holding a door half open, waiting to see if I'd step through. Finally, she reached across the table, not to touch me, but to brush a crumb from my sleeve. Her fingers lingered a fraction too long, like a question she didn't want answered yet. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. The next Tuesday, I went later than usual, hoping maybe she'd already left. Or maybe hoping she hadn't. The laundromat was nearly empty. One college kid scrolling his phone, an old man dozing in the corner. She was at the counter, counting quarters into a small paper roll. Her hair was down tonight, loose against her shoulders. She looked up and gave the smallest nod. You're late, she said. Yeah. Got stuck, I murmured. She pushed the roll of coins aside. Coffee's fresh. I hesitated. Maybe later. Her brow furrowed, just slightly. She went back to counting. The air between us felt heavier than the week before. I loaded the washer, poured in detergent. My hands shook a little, and I spilled some. I wiped it with my sleeve. When I looked up, she was watching, one hand still on the coins, the other tucked under her arm. A door at the back swung open. A tall man with keys on his belt walked in, maybe the owner. He glanced at me, then at her. Everything good? He asked. Yeah, she said quickly. He nodded and went to the back again. The moment snapped like a rubber band. I sat on the plastic chair by the window, staring at my phone, thumb moving over a blank text. She came over, stood a little too close. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said, then shook my head. I don't know. She sat across from me, but angled her body away, like she was ready to stand. You seem different tonight. Do I? You're quieter. I gave a short laugh. You barely know me. I notice things, she said softly. The college kid left. The old man's dryer buzzed, and he shuffled out too. The laundromat went silent except for the hum of machines. She reached for my sleeve, then stopped halfway. Maybe this, she began, then bit her lip. Never mind. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. Maybe what? She shook her head. You're young. I'm not. People talk. My son, she trailed off. We sat like that, both staring at the floor. The machines hummed. Rain tapped against the window. Finally, she slid a folded napkin across the table, her handwriting scrawled on the corner. Call me if you need anything. Or don't. I touched the edge of the napkin with my fingers. My heart jumped. She looked at me then, really looked, and for a second the distance closed. Her hand hovered near mine, almost touching. Our faces tilted a little closer, not enough to be obvious, but enough to feel it. I opened my mouth, some half-thought rising, but the bell above the door chimed. Someone coming in, and she pulled her hand back like nothing had happened. It was raining again, but softer this time. The kind of drizzle that made the street lamps blur. We closed up early. The machines were empty, the floor still damp from mopping. She locked the door and slipped the keys into her pocket. Bus stops at the corner, she said. You still walking? Yeah, I said. Mind if I walk with you a bit? We didn't use umbrellas. We just walked under the awnings, shoulder to shoulder, but not touching. Our reflections moved together in the dark shop windows. She kept her hands in her coat pockets, head slightly bowed. You're quiet tonight, she said after a block. You keep saying that. Because it's true. I almost laughed, but didn't. I keep thinking about the napkin. She didn't answer. We reached the bus stop, an empty bench under a flickering light. She sat. I stayed standing for a moment before sitting next to her. The wood was wet. You could have texted, she said finally. I didn't know what to say. She exhaled slowly, like she'd been holding her breath all week. Neither did I. The bus rumbled past without stopping. We both watched its taillights disappear, a long streak of red in the rain. I thought maybe you'd stop coming, she said softly. I almost did. Why? I wiped my palms on my jeans. Because I didn't want to make this weird. She gave a short, sad laugh. It's already weird. I turned toward her. We're just talking. Are we? She said, still looking straight ahead. I couldn't answer. The rain drummed on the shelter roof. She pulled her hands from her pockets and rubbed them together. I shouldn't even be sitting here, she said. I'm old enough to know better. You're not. I began, then stopped. I have a son your age, she said, not bitter, just stating a fact. He wouldn't forgive me for even thinking about this. I felt a sharp twist in my chest. It's not like that, I said, though I wasn't sure what that was. Then what is it? She asked quietly. I looked at her hands, knuckles red from the cold, nails short, faint blue veins. My own hand moved a little toward hers, but stayed on my knee. I don't know, I said. I just don't want to leave when you're here. Her breath caught, just barely. Don't say that. Why not? Because I don't know what to do with it. We sat in silence. Another bus came and went. The rain eased. She pulled a small thermos from her bag, the same dented one I'd first returned to her, and unscrewed the lid. Steam curled out. Tea, she said. Chamomile. Helps me sleep. She poured some into the cap and handed it to me. I held it carefully, the metal warm against my palms. Thanks. She sipped from the thermos itself, eyes on the street. I used to think I was invisible at night, she said. Then you started showing up. I swallowed the tea. It tasted faintly of honey. I wasn't trying to, I know. She gave a small smile that didn't reach her eyes. But you did. She leaned back against the bench, tilting her head up at the dark sky. I'm scared, she said, barely audible. Not of you. Of me. I stared at her profile, raindrops caught in her hair. My hand shifted again, closer. What are you scared of? That I'll want something I can't have? She whispered. The air between us tightened. My heart was loud in my ears. I could smell the tea, the rain, her soap. I thought about reaching out, about closing the small space on the bench. She turned to me then, eyes bright, waiting. I opened my mouth, a question forming. But the words stalled there, hanging between us like the last drop of rain before it falls. The next week, I didn't go to the laundromat. Tuesday night came and went. I sat in my apartment with the same small load of towels still in the hamper. My phone lay face down on the table. No messages. No napkin. The silence felt heavier than the noise had ever been. On Wednesday, I went anyway, a little before closing. The place smelled of bleach and damp air. She wasn't behind the counter. A younger guy with headphones on was mopping the floor. She's off tonight, he said when I asked. Switched shifts. I bought a soda from the machine just to have something in my hands. The hum of dryers filled the empty space where her voice had been. For the next few nights I tried again. Different times. She wasn't there. The napkin with her number stayed folded in my jacket pocket, edges softening, ink fading a little. When she finally texted, it wasn't what I expected. Working days for a bit. Hope you're well. No smiley, no question mark. I typed back 3 times and erased each. I miss you. When can I see you? Everything okay? In the end, I sent nothing. Saturday afternoon, on a whim, I walked past the laundromat. Through the window, I saw her in daylight for the first time. She was wearing a pale sweater, hair pulled back, no trace of the night shift. She laughed at something an older woman said while folding sheets. It looked like an entirely different life. I kept walking. That evening I sat with my phone in my hand, thumb hovering. The apartment smelled like reheated pasta. On the TV, some sitcom laughed without me. I thought about the bench in the rain, about her thermos and her confession. The following Tuesday, I forced myself back. She was there again, but different, brisk, efficient, polite. She greeted me like any other customer. "Machines in back are open," she said. I tried to smile. "How have you been?" "Busy," she said. She didn't look up. I loaded my clothes slowly, waiting for some small sign. Nothing. When she finally came over, it was to wipe down a counter. Her voice was low. "My son's visiting," she said. "Staying a few days?" "Oh," I said. She nodded, still not meeting my eyes. "He doesn't like surprises." I wanted to ask if I was a surprise. Instead, I folded a towel, then refolded it, the fabric creasing under my hands. I didn't feel heartbroken, I thought. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. She straightened up. "Anyway, you know where the coffee is." Her smile was polite now, not private. I stayed another 15 minutes, then left with my clothes still damp. The night air felt colder than before. At home, I opened our old thread on my phone. I typed. I don't know what happened, but I missed the bench. Deleted it. Typed again. Should I stop coming? Deleted that too. Finally, I just stared at the screen, her last message floating there like a door left ajar. Then I put the phone down, face first, and turned off the light. The napkin with her number stayed in my jacket pocket. I didn't throw it away. But I didn't call either. It was nearly midnight when I found myself outside her building. I'd never been there before, only followed the vague directions she'd once mentioned about a small apartment above the bakery. The smell of warm bread still clung to the street. A single light glowed in the second-floor window. I stood at the door for a long time, jacket zipped up, hands in pockets. The napkin with her number had gone soft from weeks of folding and unfolding. My thumb rubbed the ink until it smudged. I knocked once, then almost turned away. The door opened before I could. She stood there barefoot in a t-shirt and loose pants, hair pulled back. Not makeup, no practice smile. Just her. "You're here," she said quietly. No question mark. "Yeah," I said. I wasn't sure if I should. She stepped aside without a word. I went in. The apartment was small, warm, filled with the smell of chamomile tea. A single mug sat on the counter, steam curling. "You're working nights again?" I asked. "For now," she said. "He's gone. Back to Chicago." She didn't elaborate. I nodded, eyes on the mug. My hands felt heavy. "I kept not texting you." "I know." She poured tea into another mug and set it on the table. I kept not answering. We both sat at the kitchen table, facing each other. The only sound was the kettle clicking as it cooled. "I didn't mean to complicate your life," I said finally. She looked down at her hands. "You didn't." "I did. I keep thinking about that night on the bench," I said. Her shoulders rose and fell. "So do I." We sat in silence. She turned the mug slowly, thumb on the rim. I noticed her eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying. "I'm scared of this," she said. "I'm scared of what people would think. Of what my son would think. Of how it ends." "I know," I said. "I'm scared too." She gave a small, almost bitter laugh. "I thought after the divorce I couldn't feel this anymore." "What?" "That quiet pull. The one that makes you wait for someone's knock." I exhaled. My palms were flat on the table. "I don't want to be a mistake you made because you were lonely," I said. "You're not," she said softly. "But I don't know what else you are." Her hand was near mine, fingers trembling a little. She didn't pull back this time. "I don't know what we're doing," I whispered. "I don't either." We sat like that for a long time, mugs cooling between us. The room felt small, but not suffocating, just full of unsaid things. Finally, she reached over, placed her hand lightly over mine. Her skin was warm, steady. "I don't want to keep pretending I don't wait for you on Tuesdays," she said. I closed my eyes. The cost of the words was visible in her face, a kind of quiet exhaustion mixed with hope. "I keep thinking if I stay silent, it'll go away," I said. "And it doesn't." Her fingers squeezed mine once, tentative. "So what now?" I opened my mouth, but no answer came. Only a soft, shaky exhale. We both leaned a little closer, Not enough for a kiss, just enough that our foreheads almost touched. Okay, she said, voice barely audible. I looked at her. Okay, I echoed. Nothing else. No promises. Just our hands still joined on the table, tea gone cold. The room holding its breath by the time autumn rolled in. The rain had shifted from summer drizzle to a colder, steadier fall. The laundromat had a new belt in the old dryer. The rattle was gone. So were the nights when I sat there wondering if she'd speak to me at all. We never made a decision the night in her kitchen. We didn't need to. We started showing up for each other in smaller, steadier ways. A thermos of tea she left on the counter for me. A bag of clean towels I dropped off for her when she worked late. No declarations, just habit. Tuesdays became ours again. By November, I'd learned the rhythm of her days. 8:47 a.m. she'd text a single word, coffee, after her shift ended. Sometimes I'd meet her at the little park near the bus stop. We'd sit on the same wet bench from that night, watching the buses pass. The first few times we still sat an inch apart. Then that inch closed without us noticing. She started reading again on her breaks, paperbacks tucked under the counter. I started bringing her small things from the outside world, a pastry, a photo of a bookstore I'd found. Neither of us called it anything. We just kept showing up. Her son came back for the holidays. This time she told him about me, not with a speech, but with a simple, "He's been helping out at the shop." He nodded and shook my hand. No scene, no storm. Later she told me, "It's not approval yet, but it's not anger either." I could see the relief in her shoulders. One Saturday morning in January, she handed me her spare key. "In case you need to use the dryer when I'm not there," she said. I took it without making it bigger than it was. It still felt big. We built a life that wasn't grand, but was ours. Some nights, she still worked late, and I'd wait for her in the kitchen, chamomile tea steeping. Other nights I'd fold my towels alone, but always left a small note by the register. Bench at 8:47? She didn't move in with me. I didn't move in with her. We just moved closer, one Tuesday at a time. My phone stopped holding unsent messages. Her thermos started living on my counter. We still used the bench as a marker. Rain or not, buses coming or going. It became the place we sat when words felt heavy. Sometimes we spoke about the past, her bookstore, my mother's laundry trips. Sometimes we just shared tea in silence. One evening, late in winter, she reached over and brushed a crumb from my sleeve the way she had in that back room months ago. This time her fingers stayed there. No rush, no hiding, just a small, human touch that said, "We're here now." I watched a bus pass and thought about the sentence I'd been paused in. It wasn't paused anymore. It didn't have a perfect ending, but it had a rhythm. Us, on a bench, tea cooling, the city breathing around us. Earned quiet. She looked at me and smiled. Not a question, not a promise, just an understanding. The kind you can only build slowly. I smiled back. 8:47, I said softly. She nodded. 8:47, she repeated. And that was enough.